Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. Bon fête national français.
Yay!
Je suis Trevor Keyson. It's Bastille Day when this comes out, which is
a very special.
It's a weirdly big thing in my family, and
especially given that you're not French.
Yeah, I thought we were French, and it turns out we're not. But like, weirdly, very intense Bastille Day celebration.
Very Francophilic family.
Yes. One French CD that lasted 20-something years.
Damn.
That would only be brought out for Bastille Day.
Oh, wow. Thank God it's worth.
What was the connection? Like, why was it such a big deal?
I don't
Francophilia,
know.
really. That's
wine.
Maybe. You really liked croissants.
Yeah, it's very strange. I don't know why that was.
The gushing red punch bowl of blood gushing down the entryway.
Yes.
Maybe that.
Oh God!
Bring out the life-size replica of the guillotine and cut up some watermelon.
Oh, and the stories for the children really special.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining like the Shining elevator opening in slow motion, and like the blood comes out, but then Trevor's aunt is standing there with like a cake in her hand.
Canapes, darling, canapes.
My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and well, I don't know a lick of French. My boyfriend Michael once told me that I had a dream where I was sleep talking completely in what seemed to be fluent French. I don't know why or how.
So you were sleep talking.
I was sleep talking in French. I don't know French. I couldn't tell you why that is or how.
Do you?
Well, exactly. And the thing is, I think it might have been one of those, like, every French word I do know that everyone knows, like like just laid out in a row, like a nonsensical row of words.
Marzipan.
Yeah, exactly. Ballet.
Hey, I am Don Marshall. I am a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I'm just craving a croissant now with all this French talk. Oh
my.
I want a croissant.
Croissant, yeah.
That sounds delicious. My name is Dan Oliverio. I'm an author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And I know I like your croissant idea. In fact, we may do that.
Okay, croissants afterwards, everybody.
We may.
Welcome to the show, everybody. All right, well, let's dive right in. I believe we have a very, very helpful mailbag today.
Yeah, cue that. Yay, there it is.
I'm one step ahead of you. Doom, doom, doom.
Today's mailbag is from our listener named Judd. And Judd writes, today's episode about traveling was excellent.
That would be last week's episode.
One point I recommend making is that when requesting a hotel room with an accessible bathroom, they should definitely make sure to reiterate they want a walk-in or roll-in shower. I've had multiple hotels pride themselves on being ADA compliant because they put in rails in the tub. Technically, that constitutes accessible. However, they fail to understand the rails make it even worse because they take up a lot of space in a normal-sized tub, so you can't fit. Also, the tubs are also fiberglass, which I'm loath to admit I have cracked on more than one occasion. So I have huge anxiety about bathrooms. Also, toilets too close to the wall are problematic if your legs are large and have to go around the bowl. Regarding the psychological damage caused by magnet mouths and jaw wiring, it reminded me of the conversion therapy used to try to alter one's sexuality. 100%. Both practices should be banned. And I'm loving the show. Thank you, Judd.
Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, I think those are really, really solid tips. And I think it just feeds into that overall sort of lesson of like planning ahead. And like this just helps you sort of check down the list of questions you should ask when you're sort of coming up with your travel.
The toilet thing you mentioned is definitely one of my big things because I'm hippie, right? I've got a lot going on downstairs. So when they put that bathroom next to the wall and then they cuddle up the sink next to it, I'm ready to kill a bitch. Yeah, just like I'm ready to kill someone.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very valid tips. And I don't think I would have thought of, because I would have assumed that having railings would have just been helpful regardless. But yeah, taking up the space.
Well, because what they do is they take a tiny fiberglass tub, like he says, and then they slap railings around the edge, so it's even smaller to stand in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Judd. We appreciate you listening and writing in. We have, are we starting with the bad one or the good one today?
I think the bad one.
Okay. All right. We'll start low and lift you up.
Yes. So there was an article in Refinery 29, and it was a woman talking about her images being stolen by before and after weight loss ads.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'd seen one of her TikToks talking about this. But she chronicles basically discovering that her pictures, and I think even some video because TikTok were being used to sell things like laxative teas and other weight loss products.
Yeah.
And I'm unclear if this is in all of the cases or just one particular case where they took pictures. They dug through her Instagram and took pictures from when she was thinner and suffering from an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And used that as the after and took pictures of her fat and happy. That was the weirdest thing to me, is like, she's clearly happier in the before quote unquote in this ad.
But how can she be, Trevor? She's fat.
It's just a very unpleasant situation. It's horrible.
It is. And I think the thing that I'm hesitant to say shocked because I don't think much shocks me anymore, but definitely the thing that surprised me was, so the person did the interview with the woman whose name is Marie Southard Espina. But the woman who did the interview also has about 20,000 followers on Instagram. I think it was Instagram or Twitter, and polled those people who tend to be in the sort of fat positive world to see if this had happened to them or people they knew. And she said that the response was overwhelmingly in the affirmative. Like, this is not as uncommon as you would want it to be. And it seems to be actually a fairly common practice. And the woman that she talked to, Marie, had apparently like reached out to one of these companies saying like, hey, you've used my image. This is not okay. And they showed her, I guess, as a way of saying like, this is what we do. I don't know. They showed her like a catalog of
catalog of pictures that they use, and they said to her, so if you want to contact any of these people and see if it's okay that we use their likeness, you go ahead and do that.
Right. And she was like, fuck you, do your job. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
insane.
Well, and you know, I think part of the article is, I think the person who wrote the article contacted the advertising council about the problem, and the woman, I don't think she's lying, said, we never hear about this.
Yeah.
And I think that's true, because I think people just suffer the whatever it is.
Slings and arrows.
Yeah. And then they just hope it goes away. Or if they get really angry, they say, take my picture down, and the picture might go down, but the damage is already done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to drastically report this more.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing that kind of, again, I hate to say shocks, but the thing that really gets me about it is, I mean, that's theft of image. Like you can't do that. You can't just take people's image and use it to sell your product, but they do because they can get away with it. Like that, this isn't legal. This is not okay. And the best that they've done is, okay, somebody writes in and maybe they'll go, okay, we'll take it down. Sorry.
Well,
like maybe you'll get that good of a response.
I completely agree with you, but it also makes me wonder about all the creeper sites and not YouTube, but like Tumblr and all these places where they're just stealing people's pictures, putting them up, giving no credit, or because some of the people they're stealing, like, they have actual OnlyFans pages, but what's funny is this. So there's a lot of sites. And when I say sites, I kind of mean everything, like Tumblr pages and things, where they will take, let's say, a professional bodybuilder model, and they will feature their photo, but they almost always give credit to the model. And that never happens with fat models, I find. It's just, we saw this picture of
true.
We saw this person. We saw this picture of a fat person. We put it up, and if they want it gone, I guess they should contact us, because isn't it really their fault for appearing in public?
It's interesting you talk about Tumblr, because I know that I've seen, like, in terms of like super chub stuff, pictures be taken for ads on Tumblr for like weird sites that I assume just you go to and they give you a computer virus. It's like gaysexcams.co.virus.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's interesting because it's like invasive, but also I'm like, wow, like I don't know how they know that this is a market to use ads for.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, those kind of like spam ads never have fat people in them, so they never really apply to me. I'm like, nope, I'm not interested. Goodbye.
But they're trying to get you now, apparently.
Well, apparently. Yeah.
Those before and after ads, like, honestly, the photo, like, okay, if someone stole my image and used me as a before, I'd be upset. I understand that this is a terrible thing. But honestly, just the straight up existence of the interview before and afters, where they hire somebody to lose weight.
Yeah.
They give them 6 months to gain weight.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they have them work out for 2 months to get rid of the weight to get back to their original spot using their product. And then that person goes on and testifies that when they had that additional 15 pounds, their life was hell. Everyone hated them. I hated them. And it's this testimony that it's not possible to be happy in that prior body, that they're being paid to say.
Yeah.
You know?
The thing that I want to really highlight about this too, before we move on, is like as Dan said, like the before and after, or no, Trevor said that like they in her case, and I think it's happened in other people's case too, like they used an after image of when she was suffering from anorexia.
When she was sick. Yeah.
When she was literally
God.
sick, they used that as the after, like she lost all of the weight image. And so you get sort of hit twice by being reminded of how awful being fat is and being reminded of your psychological and physical damage from that time in your life.
Well, and that's why it's so important to recognize that this is never, ever, ever about health. It's never about health. It's about prejudice. It's about body fascism. It's about trying to make people look a certain way because you think they should. And the health argument is absolutely, if it's in the background, it's not to do with it. Because if you take someone at their sickest, and she talks about how, I was at my sickest, and we've talked about celebrities who did this too, where they were at their thinnest and they are at their sickest and they're getting nothing but compliments and adulation.
Yeah. Yeah. And she internally, she feels awful because she knows that it was because of her suffering from this disorder that got her to be thin. Like that was a torturous experience for her. And yet she's getting all of this sort of congratulations from everybody in her life. And like that alone is enough of a mind fuck. And then to have that broadcast and taken and displayed, stolen, like let's talk about the stolen part for a second, but then also just sent out into the world for people to look at.
In a manner that is telling them this sicker version of you is preferable to the world.
Yeah.
And you were better that way.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that says.
Well, and the ultimate nail in the coffin is that usually then someone with thin privilege comes along and says, and I know how hard you worked.
Exactly. Which is so fucked.
Because I know how hard that is. No, you don't.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
There's some hope
There
as
is.
we move through. This is the point in Splash Mountain where we've gone down through the brambles at the edge of the cliff. And now suddenly it says, okay, now everyone's singing and dancing because Pinterest has banned weight loss ads.
Yeah.
Yes, sort of.
And
Yeah, sort of.
they've banned the ads specifically. But let's talk about the good part of this first, because
Yeah.
they are the first major social media network to do so. And I think that's worth, that alone, and specifically in response to the fact that, I think it was, I forget the hotline, but the eating disorder hotline, there's probably a
National
official-
Eating Disorder Association.
Yeah.
NEDA.
Reported that their calls over the last year have gone up 41%, like just an absurd leap since the pandemic started. And in response to the fact that this is becoming, I mean, let's be honest, like has already been a serious issue, but is now much more visibly so. Pinterest said, hey, we're done with this. We're not allowing any weight loss related ads, fitness ads. Now, Dan is over here cringing because they are not going to apply that.
It is actually not true. It is not that they are banning weight loss ads. They are simply not accepting money from advertisers who promote weight loss.
Right. So user-generated content is not being
exactly. And I went through and just for fun, I went through and flagged about half a dozen of these, and they run the gamut from again weight loss tea to isn't it wonderful, this ad campaign in Georgia, this PSA that's trying to extinguish fat children. What a great marketing campaign. And they're celebrating that as part of a page that's all about great marketing campaigns.
And this is user generated content, so it's not going to be policed the same way. Now, if I'm going to put this in the category of it's something.
Yes.
Right? Like this is this because it's a very public step forward. Like I think, it would be one thing to just like quietly say, oh, we're not going to do, like, we don't want to make a big fuss, but we're just going to stop. Like they're making a statement out of it. Yes, they probably could do a lot more, but then you start to get into like I don't know, like how feasible is it to actually?
Step.
It is.
It's a
It
first
is.
and
But
important step.
I just want to be the person who says that all this really means is that they weren't getting much ad revenue from weight loss ads because people were posting them for free.
I don't know that that's true.
Oh, look at Pinterest. It is riddled with with weight loss ads.
Yeah, but we don't know. No, well, you're saying user generated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, weight loss
Because
content.
Yeah.
So let's say I have a diet.
We got to distinguish our language here first, because when you say ad, what you're talking about is a pin that somebody's uploaded that looks like an ad.
No, it is an ad.
Click us here. You give us money. We will help you lose weight.
Yeah.
But that's not what Pinterest, that's not a Pinterest ad.
Correct.
Where somebody paid to have it shown on Pinterest.
So what that means is they weren't getting any money from that because people do it for free.
What I'm saying is we don't know that at all. Like they actually did have ads that people paid for, and those are being blocked. We don't know how much money they did or didn't make from that.
Dan is saying, especially because like I use Pinterest a good amount. It's my wind down social media because it's just like I can just look at recipes and I'll pin them and I'll never make them. But Pinterest's algorithm is very aggressive.
Yes.
So that there are not like the official paid ads, a company that is selling teas can have their board, that they're putting stuff on their, these tummy tea companies will have a Pinterest board where they'll put content up, which people can pin to their boards. And then if they pin that, it'll kind of skew their algorithm to all weight loss stuff and of varying degrees of, I don't know, severity.
And my point is you'd have to be an idiot to pay Pinterest to take your advertising when you could give it to them for free.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that there's clearly many ways around this. And the article addresses that at the end. They say specifically like social media influencers are very clever about being subversive and getting that kind of messaging into.
But removing the paid content from the actual algorithm, yes, that is going to cut down the amount of stuff you see, because they're literally channeling additional weight loss advertising at you under that old system. Now, if you go to a place where it is, you're going to get it, as opposed to it coming and finding you. That's a big deal.
Right.
Well, but as Trevor points out, their algorithm is about targeting content, not necessarily advertising.
Right. And so this is never going to be a simple issue, but the next step is to have someone or something start actually going through Pinterest pins and figuring out what qualifies as weight loss content or something that might be damaging to people who are struggling with those issues. Like that, they have certainly hundreds of millions, if not billions of pins.
Yeah.
Like,
and
how do you do that?
Worked to crack down on damaging stuff like anti-vaxxer stuff, stuff with that whole, I don't really know how to describe it other than like people making their autistic children drink bleach as like, there's a whole lot of bonkers mommy health stuff.
Holy crap.
That is on Facebook. And
bleach is just like the miracle drug. It cures anything.
I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole. People who are listening who are like, what the fuck? You can find this yourself. But
All too easily.
Pinterest has worked. They have done a lot of work. So this is it's something which maybe we need develop a little musical cue for.
Like The More You Know or something. Yeah. I'll think on it.
Anyway, it's something. But let's get on. Let's just power through. It's
Yay.
Oh my God, it's
that
that
much. 2021. Happy Disability Pride Month.
Yay.
I didn't realize it was that time of year until I saw a couple of posts on social media, but I also saw this article. It is from a college newspaper. The Alestal is the name of the publication. And it's the article is "The Body Positive Movement Needs to Confront Its Ableism."
So this was something that I will admit I don't know. And I think this is part of the problem, but it just hadn't occurred to me, hadn't come across my radar. The idea that, so if you look at body positive and the sort of the way that it's promoted, it's the idea that, oh, your body is perfect the way that it works or the way that it is, like, and it's represented in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, it's a fat person like doing a hike.
Yeah.
And like you can break your image of what healthy looks like, but it's oftentimes represented in a way that is ableist or exclusive against people who
It is
are
stating
disabled.
I am able in the way that you don't think I am.
Right.
And that makes me valid.
And the thing that really hit home for me was it's the idea that your body is healthy if it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if it works in this way. And as sort of juxtaposed against like what fat people are told, which is your body is healthy if it's thin.
Mhm.
And it's it's like that direct comparison. And so broadening your perception of how body positivity can be all inclusive.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different take on this because it intersects with so many things. I mean, I completely agree with the sentiment here, but it has it spills over into a lot of really important areas. For example, the idea that, it's okay to be fat if you're healthy, but if you're not healthy, well then, what the fuck are you doing? So that it's very much what I agree with fundamentally when we talk about body positivity is very often it's presented as, well, it's okay that I'm fat because I'm healthy, as opposed to it's okay that I'm fat because it's okay that I'm fat.
Yeah.
Like it just being a priori. So that there's always this thing in the background, because what goes along with healthism and what goes along with fat oppression is this idea of, well, who's to blame? Because if you're sick and it's not your fault, well, then we have sympathy. But if you're sick and it is your fault, like, for example, because we think, you're fat and therefore you shouldn't be, then you have to change. Then it's your fault. Then you don't deserve. Then we have a right to hate you. And it's very similar to what you get with gay acceptance. Like for a long time, people in the gay movement, it's okay to be gay because I can't help it. It's okay to be gay because it's not a choice. And because if it was a choice, well, then I should just stop it.
And I said this a couple episodes ago, but I think it's good that these conversations are starting to happen within kind of the fat acceptance movement of not using the like, well, my blood works great, because that's not the point. And we shouldn't have to say that. And it shouldn't be, your blood work is no one's business other than your own and, your doctors and anyone you choose to share it with. Yeah.
Or the idea like you go home for the holidays and, your family's giving you grief about your weight and your defense is, well, the doctor says I'm healthy. Like yes, that's great. And that's not the point.
Sure.
I think also, part of the, this year of Fat Watch, last year was Lizzo. This year is also kind of like focusing on looking at the intersections of fatness and other identities. And I think it's important to kind of put Disability Pride Month on people's radars because it's something that really is not acknowledged. And I think especially within different marginalized communities, it's something where it's on the outskirts of it. And just like, we talk a lot about on the podcast about accommodating your fat friends, but also I think just creating an awareness for allies about thinking about your friends and what works for them. What are they capable of in just the same way that if you're having a dinner party and you have a friend who's vegan, like, oh, that's something that you think about. And I think just thinking about people in your life and what they're able to do and whatnot is something people should work on.
Which is a perfect segue.
What would you like to talk about, Michael?
Yeah. So
it seems like there's something weighing on your mind.
This is a very apt reference to our opening tagline. So for the 4th of July, my immediate family came into town to visit. This is so I live with my younger sister and her husband, and then my older sister and her husband, and my mom and my stepdad. So they all came to town. A couple of them stayed with us, a couple of them stayed at a hotel, but it was a big sort of family get together. And the sort of headline here is that Michael, my boyfriend, has been staying with me here and is meeting most of my family for the first time. And so, I've of course introduced other past boyfriends that I've had. And so they're very familiar with, I guess being chaser, although I don't think I put that word to it up until about a year and a half ago when we started the podcast. Like that was sort of me officially coming out, which has been amazing. And so for me, it was the next sort of version of introducing somebody to my family. Like how much further along do I feel like I've come since the last time I've done this, which was a solid 5 or 6 years ago.
Introducing your family to
somebody in my life who I'm dating. Yes. So more than just the introduction, though, it's also this dynamic, which is very stressful, which is that in my family, specifically with my sisters, and I let's just start with, I absolutely love my family dearly. I'm very close with them. And so a lot of these issues are just the issues, and I don't want to assign blame, but my sisters love to plan Like all of these events, all of these places to go, all of these museums to see, all of these hikes to do, all of these restaurants to eat at, like tons of stuff. Again, I love my little sister, absolutely love her. She was coming up with options to do for this like 5-day visit. She came up with 20 different things, some of them including restaurants, but like, here's a list of all the stuff we want to do. And so in theory, that's fine, right? In theory, it's just, okay, these are options. But the catch is that most of these things are not things that Michael is going to have the ability to do, which is kind of how we got off at, which like, that's the catch here is like, what of these things can he do with us? And then of those things, what is it going to feel like when I know that, for instance, my family was all people my size, largely love to like rush from one thing to the next. Like they move at a very high speed. And even like I went on a walk with my mom and my stepdad, and I was strolling along. I was having to speed up to keep up with them, and they don't even move as fast as my sisters go. So like I move at a much slower pace than my family does. And of course the guy I'm with moves at a slower pace than I do. So all of these things kind of coalesced into one giant experience. And I have a number of points, but I just want to like throw to the room for a second to see if there are any immediate reactions before I have a list of stuff to go through.
I mean, we were, in planning this episode, we talked about that this is kind of revisiting Light, our second episode about dealing with family, which I think is good because we're in a post-vaccination period, because I don't like saying post-pandemic because there's still a pandemic. Yeah. And many people around, we have a lot of listeners around the world, who we're still very much in a pandemic, which, America's like post-pandemic. Let's call it post-vax.
Post-vax. And even then for the people able to get a vaccination, there's a privilege associated with that.
And we're all different mentally, emotionally, and physically than we were before the pandemic. And I mean, I know I have different stuff going on than I did then. And I'm navigating this. Okay. Not only navigating spaces like for my anxiety is different, but also just things are physically different.
You mean because of your body or because of the world?
My body, but I mean also the world, just because like I am still like, when I see, the little markers on the floor, I'm like, okay, got to stay here. But like people aren't really doing that, but I feel like I should be, and masking and,
there's a lot to figure out.
Yeah, there's a lot to figure out. And I think that's why it's good to kind of revisit this, especially in, people getting back together and really wanting to do a lot of stuff, because this notion of we've missed out on time.
Yes.
I'm thinking of this as sort of the one day at Disneyland period.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You show up at Disneyland, and if you're a tourist, you want to go on every goddamn ride of the one day you have. And it turns it into a goddamn living hell.
Yes. I did that when I was 9 years old. I made a list of everything we were going on at Disneyland, and I made everybody stick to that schedule. And we hit everything. And someone had to go to the bathroom, but that wasn't on the list.
So we left them behind.
You just move the Jungle Cruise earlier, and you'll be fine. Why is that guy hanging off the edge of the boat? Don't. It's fine. It's fine.
So the context just to go into this, and I think I may have said this in episode 2, so I'll give a quick summary, is when, the most recent time that I introduced somebody that I was dating to my family before this, so 5 or 6 years ago, we did sort of a day trip to the zoo in DC, which I think we've mentioned is like awful for a number of reasons. If you have any kind of, difficulty walking on like hills or over long distances. And most of my family members, specifically my sisters and their husbands, just like sped ahead.
Oh yeah.
And we constantly felt like we were having to like run to keep up. And it was miles and miles of walking. It was just extremely stressful. It marred the whole day. It was a big miscommunication, because my older sister thought we had a lovely time. She genuinely thought it was a great day. And I think she thought that we lagged behind because we chose to go at our own pace, when really we felt left behind. And so that's kind of what I was coming into this with. And so obviously I'm more, I guess, aware of what I need to communicate to my family. And so that was helpful.
I think what you just said there is really super key, that, are you being, because even if you do negotiate it, there's still that tension of we want to be part of the group and they want you to be part of the group, but on whose terms?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what bar are you setting when it comes to the speed and and it's also not just like pace, but also like, do we take breaks to like sit down and chat for a second. Like, how often do we do that? Is that going to make other people feel impatient? Specifically, my older sister's husband gets very impatient very quickly. And like, I have a good relationship with him. And like, I don't want to rag on him. It's going to sound like that, but just for the purpose of this discussion, he gets very impatient. He walks very quickly. He doesn't like to waste time. Like, it's that kind of feeling.
Very, very purpose-driven.
Very purpose-driven, very, you know. So in planning all of these events, Julia was talking about all the stuff to do. And I eventually I talked to Michael about it. I was like, some of this stuff is probably not stuff you're going to be able to do. You might not even want to do it if you can. Like, I just want to get on the same page with you because I'm going to have to talk to her about this, and we're going to have to kind of try and navigate this together because I don't necessarily know how to say these things that's not going to either embarrass you or how we're going to handle it.
Yeah.
And so basically he said was like, I don't mind if you like to say that, like, you can tell him the truth. Like, oh, like Michael's not going to be up for that. He might not be able to do that. Fine with that. But when I had that conversation with Julia, I felt uncomfortable at first, but she was like, oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, just let us know, like, what of these things can you do? Like, what will you be interested in? We don't have to do all of the rest of this stuff. We can just focus on, and then that put me in an additional corner of like, oh, now I don't get the right of refusal anymore.
You got to
Now
come up with something.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean I have to solve the problem I've created? Yeah.
Right.
And not that you've created a problem, but you know, you've brought up an issue and I don't think it's fair to like, you bring up an issue and then you make it their problem, their issue to solve.
Right.
You got to partner with that.
And so that was fine. It actually went pretty well. And the nice thing was that as she was picking restaurants specifically, because that was something that felt very, very attainable in a very easy way as long as we did it right. Like, let me look at the restaurant. Let me look at the pictures on Google. Let me make sure that Don turns his phone off. And then, you know, is it going to be a place that's going to be accommodating? And I also think about things like, where is the parking? How easy is the parking? Can we drop somebody off at the very front of the restaurant? Are the chairs good? You know, stuff that you just start to get used to doing when you're looking out for your guy.
Yeah.
And so she started to learn some of that stuff. But I think really specifically checking like the photos for chairs that were going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like it was that. And what I ran into was that we all went out to dinner to this one Indian place. It was on Fairfax. It was right in the center of like, you know, that busy stretch of road right across from Cantor's, like crazy neighborhood.
You can barely park, let alone stop.
You can barely, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so I drove Michael and I was like, all right, I'm just going to drop you out front.
Right.
Like I'll go circle for parking. And he gets in. I'm the last one to arrive because I had to go find parking. And everyone else is already sitting at the table, which is one of those fucking like 4-foot high bar.
Oh God, I hate those.
Yeah. And like the chairs are these really tall, like bar slash.
And they're already seated, so you got to dynamite them out of those chairs to get something that's sittable.
So there was nothing.
Oh, shit.
There was nothing. The only other option they had was that half booth chair thing, but they were small. They were only 2-person seats. There wasn't. We had an 8-person group.
Yeah.
And so there were literally not enough chairs.
Which is why they put you at those tables in the first place.
Which is why they put us. And the thing is, the pictures online didn't show how tall they were. You just saw the tops of the chairs, where it's like, oh, that looks sturdy.
Yeah.
So Michael ended up sort of like half sitting, half standing the whole time. And it was very uncomfortable. But like he's a trooper, and like we had a good time, and basically, you know, just sort of powered through.
But how do you avoid that? Yeah.
How do you avoid that? And like again, like she checked for it. She didn't know to check for a good parking situation, but I handled that on my own.
Well, and I would submit that the parking situation is easy. I can't think of a place where dropping off is not possible. Even if you're going to a restaurant inside a mall.
True.
Yeah.
Usually there's a way to drop off.
A way to like circumvent most of that. The parking thing, which is what we got to, was getting back to the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I asked Michael afterwards, I was like, are we like, do you want me to go get the car and pick you up? What are you feeling? And he's like, no, I'll like try and walk with people and we'll just be social. And so we ended up walking, and I'm of course flashing back to the trip through the DC Zoo where everyone sped ahead. We're going up a hill. And so like Michael and I are going at our own pace because it's just stupid not to do it that way. We're just going to do it our way. And I was stunned because everybody, like, there was an intentional choice made to stay with us.
Oh, good.
And to go at our pace. Specifically, and again, like I'm blown away by this, but my older sister's husband, who has that like purpose-driven, like very impatient, he was he was the one out of all of us making sure to keep lockstep with Michael.
Oh, sweet.
Not just with me. And then like, pointing out like, cause LA sidewalks are atrocious and there's always like cracks and divots and things that you can trip on. And he was like pointing out places that were like going to be dangerous. I was really touched. Like it was so surprising, but it was also really thoughtful and nice. And I was like, wow, I'm impressed. I'm surprised. I did not expect that.
I love that. I want to bring up our time at Rogers Gardens and the walking
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, so this has happened more than once, and it seems to happen. I don't know. It tends to happen with you, I think, more than other people I've been with. So I'm trying to accommodate Trevor's pace.
Yes.
So I'm slowing down, and Trevor notices I'm slowing down, so he slows down. And I noticed he slowed down, so I slowed down. Pretty soon we're standing.
Just stopped.
And it happens within about 5 paces. and I'm thinking like, why you stopped? I'm thinking to myself, why you stopped? I know you hate standing. I know it's more comfortable for him
To be moving.
rather than
And
stop still.
I am just like, and we had someone with us, which I think was throwing both of us off. So it was just kind of like, oh,
Let's
keep
go.
moving. Why do you keep moving?
And I'm just trying to match his pace, but he's trying to match my pace. And we're in this awful feedback loop until we are literally stock standing still.
I can do anything slower than you can. You can do anything slower than you.
And I mean, I think at one point, I think you're right, Trevor. I think if the other person hadn't been with us, I almost said, in fact, I thought like, aren't you uncomfortable standing? Did I even say that? I don't think I did.
And you did not.
Yeah. I thought of that. Like, aren't you, geez, standing a lot? But then silly me, I know my husband better than this. I thought, well, if he were uncomfortable standing, he would tell me. No,
Dan,
he won't.
Dan.
He won't. I know, Trevor, he will not do that.
That's what you would do.
I would do. Yeah.
I will say, so people that know me, have known me a long time, know I was raised Catholic and also know that there were times when I was quietly, we were watching a movie in art class, and I was bleeding from the back of my neck, and I was just sitting quietly while my hand was filling with blood.
Trevor.
And, cupping blood in my hand and raising my other hand. And
What?
the teacher finally got mad that I was like raising my hand during a movie. Like, what is it? Like Trevor keeps on, what is it? And I just held up my bloody hand. And then I was allowed to go to the nurse.
Yeah. You see what I'm dealing with, people. You see what I'm dealing with. So I have learned that it is incumbent upon me to keep checking in, but then, then.
Yeah.
And then what's your favorite response to how are you doing, Trevor?
I'm fine.
And I have learned
Everything's
to
fine.
grade the fines. Like, I'm fine. And I'm fine. And I'm fine. I'm just fine.
Yes,
I'm fine.
that
I'm
one.
fine.
That's the one I'm familiar with. The really short, like,
It's
I'm
fine.
fine.
It's just fine. It's fine. Keep moving on. I'm fine.
Just don't pay attention to me right now.
Just try not to slip in the blood. It's fine.
So I'm just saying, it's not all on one side here.
Well,
Speak up for yourself.
So
Yes.
we have in the past talked about how to do what you've done, which is talk to your family about the problem, address the issue, try and get the fix. I don't remember if last time we talked about this. I think of this as the after step, right? Of affirming the things they did right? Like, did you talk to your brother-in-law about like what you did was awesome, and I saw it, and I want you to know I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for that.
I haven't yet. I did to my sisters. I did reach out to them and say like, that was amazing. Thank you for being so accommodating. I haven't said that to him yet. I probably should.
It sounds like he went out of his way to be really sweet and kind.
and you'd be surprised the affirmation to someone that you don't think needs it or someone you don't feel like you should, that can often mean a lot more to them.
Well, and often I can say as an ally, we don't know if we did it right.
True. Yeah. Very, very good point.
But like you specifically picked out this awesome thing he did. Let him know he did something awesome.
Yeah, I should do that.
There's with everything, there's a hook and a crook, right? The hook is the carrot. It's the thing that you thank people for. The crook is when you beat them for doing something wrong. If you're a lot of people just believe in the carrot nowadays. That's fine. I believe in both. You need both. There's a balance.
You can sharpen a carrot to a fine point. Get him with it.
It's fine.
Is that where you were bleeding in the back of your head at the end of class?
He scratched his head and he had a carrot in his hand. So there are a handful of other moments and things, but by and large, he spent a lot of time here. And I was hoping that, I say here, this is in my sort of house apartment, and I was hoping that there would be more like hangout, like chill time here, so that we could all like as a family, like just be social without having to have some kind of like
mediating
destination.
activity.
When I went on that walk with my mom and my stepdad, I wanted to go on a walk with my mom. And so I was like, oh, hey, do you want to go on a walk? And she invited my stepdad, which is fine because I like them both. But as soon as we went out the door, he was like, okay, where are we going?
Yeah.
I'm like, nowhere. We're just going around the block. I just want to stretch my legs, get some sun, go around the block, stroll. But that's the feeling, that's the attitude.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of hanging out here. The one time that it was sort of a mixed bag. It was a weird set of frustrations. So here's the setup. 4th of July, we all hung out, cooked here, and that was great. Lovely time. And then the plan, again, so many plans, was to go to watch fireworks in Marina del Rey.
Oh my God.
And I knew
Yeah.
from the point that was mentioned, that was never going to happen.
No way.
There's no way. Like the only way for that to happen.
Our LA listeners can already know why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the only way that's going to happen is if you show up the day before, claim your space, and stay there.
Or hire a helicopter.
Or hire a
helicopter,
helicopter. Exactly.
yeah.
I think Uber does that. So I already knew that was it, but it was fine because, of course, it's not going to happen, and I wasn't going to try and force it. That plan gets canceled, but then it's like, okay, well, where are we going to go watch fireworks? And I'm like, at best, I'm like, well, we could just like drive down Mulholland Drive and kind of look out over the city and
there you go.
like catch the fireworks and get the breeze going through, and that's nice. And I suggested that, and Max and Julia were like, oh no, we found this really cool spot that's like an overlook that we can go to. And I'm like, I think any spot that you may have found is already going to be heavily occupied by other people. And they're like, no. It's very secluded. Like nobody's going to be there. I'm like, and they're like, it's in the hills.
Of course it is.
It's in the hills. And which is like, for anybody who's not in or from LA, like the Hollywood Hills, these are like where very expensive mansions and houses are. They're tiny, they're steep. It's very, like you don't get a view in the hills without living in a house in the hills.
Yeah.
That's how they work. So I'm already suggesting, I got cut off. And I was saying, hey, we should just go drive down Mulholland and do like at Highland, you can like see downtown LA. And I thought that would be nice. Nope. So we get in the car and immediately it's like, I can't drive because my older sister, Lauren, this is not the one who suggested the trip. Lauren gets car sick in the back seat. So Julia's the one who suggested this trip. Lauren is just along for the ride. So it's me, Lauren, her husband, and Michael all in one car, in my car. And then in the other car is Julia and Max who are kind of like leading the way. And so I'm trying to give Lauren directions going through LA. Michael's in the front passenger seat next to her. And I'm just a ball of stress because now we're traveling together. She's driving my car. It's a tiny car already. Trevor knows this. Like you have to cram in to get into that seat. Fortunately, we have made very good use of your seatbelt extender. And we get to the hills and I'm sitting there like, God, please let my 2004 Honda Civic carry all of these people up through the hills. And it was fine. We get to this spot in quotes and it's just a street with palm trees and houses blocking every direction because go figure, it's a neighborhood.
It's a residential street.
And so we're driving around trying to find the spot. And then we see Julia and Max who have parked at one point and they are walking around the Hollywood Hills looking for
the spot.
And so they're like, oh, well, we just parked here and we've been trying to find the spot. Like, if you guys just park, it's like, and I'm sitting there like, no, that's not what we agreed to. Like, I thought we were going somewhere to get like either sit in the car and watch or maybe get out and like sit in a bench where like, was there some kind of overlook that you found?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing you never found this mythical place because
No.
it doesn't exist. Yeah.
No. So there were two moments that kind of got me in a good way and a bad way. As we're still driving around, my little sister's husband who's in the car with us is like, oh, well, let's just park here and we can walk up. And of course, in my head, I'm like, that's not an option. And again, so the confusion on your face.
Yeah.
So in his mind, that's the solution. Like that's what an able-bodied person would do. You just get out and walk. But that's not an option for us. Like this is a steep hill with lots of like giant cracks in it. It's treacherous. And where are we going anyway, as Dan has pointed out?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing for me is like you even an able-bodied person, even if you were a rock climber, there is no destination in this scenario.
Yeah. So what was nice about that was immediately my older sister who's driving was like, no, we're going to find a place to park. There was a spot where the trees kind of cleared a bit. And it didn't look like the right spot, but it was the only spot that was even remotely an option. And she was like, no, we're going to drive right in front of there and park right there. And that's where we're going to go. And so, and she said that specifically because she was aware of the situation that we're not going to just be able to like walk up this hill.
Okay, good.
And that was nice. So we get there and there's this whole, and then of course, you know, she parks too close to the curb because she doesn't know. And she parks too close to like a bush.
Yeah.
That's on the passenger side. And so I'm like, no, like there's not enough space here. Like pull, like, and there's this whole navigation that has to happen.
Yeah. And on your end, I would think that you're just dreading this because it's like even more, you've got to correct people.
Yeah.
You've got to interfere with people. You've got to
Like I could do these things if I were driving.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it wouldn't be, actually, if I had been driving, I would have left. To be perfectly honest.
Well, there's nowhere to go anyway. Yeah.
There was nowhere to go. So we get there and then like to walk up to this spot, it's only about 15, 20 feet, but it's in like a dirt patch with like what are those like grates that stick up like access panels to like pipes underneath the ground?
Oh yeah.
Like it's like 3 inches off the dirt, but it's the middle of the night. And so like Michael almost tripped over that. And I'm furious because I would never have allowed this to happen if I had known.
Right.
And I tried to intervene and I got cut off. And so I'm sitting there like fuming because all of us are standing there looking at this terrible like half view of the city from so far away that you can barely see anything. I'm like, this is no better than what we would have gotten driving down Mulholland Drive. And if we had done that, we would all be comfortable and we would have had the windows down and it would have been fine.
Yeah. I mean, part of this is the fact that you're dealing with a lot of people who don't know LA like you and I do.
Yes.
And who don't understand the operating principles of LA, which is there is no public space. Yeah, public space does not exist in Los Angeles. And a fireworks display is either private or it's non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that, and they don't get that.
They don't get
And they're striving
And
valiantly
I didn't want to
against
be
it.
the asshole to say I know my town better than you.
Yeah, you
but
don't
like,
want to
I know my town better than you.
You know, and
Just the fact that they were making plans to go to Marina Del Rey to watch fireworks.
Exactly.
It's like right there, there's a big red flag.
And if you're not from Los Angeles, this is basically saying like, no, I know a secret part of the White House lawn that no one else knows about.
Right. Or like, oh no, we're just going to pop down to Times Square. It'll be fine. Like we're just going to stand there with the crowd.
See,
Like
popping down to Times Square is more possible than people are like, oh, we're just going to pop over to Santa Monica. Like, no.
yeah. So, and the thing, the problem is that at the root of all of this, like to get to the point that's relevant to the show, the solution to all of these problems for my sisters and their husbands is always, we'll just get out and walk there.
Yeah.
We can use our abled bodies to overcome any obstacle. We'll walk the 2 miles that we had to walk because there was no parking at Marina Del Rey and we had to park really far away. We'll just walk there. It'll be fine. And that's the thing that I feel like just never even could possibly be considered when somebody's planning an event for a group and they don't actually think about what people are able to do.
Well, and I gotta say, I understand why they have that disposition, like that pre-existing. Oh, we'll just walk there. What do you mean?
Yeah.
We'll just walk there.
Yeah.
I mean, how far could it be? A mile?
Yeah. And then it's 5. Don't get me wrong. That's always how it comes up. It's like, oh, it'll just be a few blocks. And it's always like 5 miles.
Yeah. Well, because in their world, that's kind of
It's
the same.
basically,
And so part of it is they have no practice. And how I would bring this back into like our podcast world is there are so many chasers, as Chubbs will tell you, there are so many chasers who will do the same thing because they date so few Chubbs or super Chubbs that they just don't give it another thought.
Yeah.
They don't give it a thought like, oh, I'll pull right up to the curb. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it, it's even taken me a while to like because I'm on the driver's side, I'm not on the passenger side, so I can't always see when I'm pulling up. Like I can't see the curb.
Yeah.
I can tell if I'm pulling up next to a bush. That's stupid.
Sure.
But like I've learned, like coming here today, I dropped him off in the driveway space and then pulled forward to park it, even though I could have just parked and let him out. But the height difference between the cars. So I'm saying that there's kind of a practice issue as well as because if you don't have any super Chubbs in your life, this literally never comes up for that purpose. I mean, you might have other disabled people in your life if the super Chub is disabled. And then there's the other side of it, because being fat is such a stigma and being a fat person who can't do stuff is doubly stigmatizing because the idea is that it's your fault.
Sure.
You've done it to yourself. Why should I have sympathy for that? So then you're in that position, like you worked out with Michael. Like, I don't want to embarrass you, but we need to talk about
like,
this.
how do we explain?
Yeah, how do we explain this? Do you say? I mean, I'm at a point because I've worked it out with Trevor. I'm just like, no, my husband's too fat for that. We need to find another solution. And I think you're fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, because it gets to the point, as opposed to, I'm not sure that's going to work for us. Well, why is it not going to work? Well, there are certain things. What things? Let's fast forward and get to the solution.
Sure. So the end result, because Julia felt terrible. Like, I don't want to say like she was completely oblivious. Like, she was very aware that this plan had gone wrong and that it was not ideal and that this was an issue. Like, she's not dumb. She's very smart. The problem was, I knew ahead of time. I knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of kicking myself for letting it happen. Like, that's the space that I was living in.
I will say, I think the good thing is I feel like now this is a tally on your side. And I think also her really...
that's so Trevor.
Well, no, but also
Wield
just like
this like a
she, she has the experience now of like really getting how it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's the hypothetical, but then when someone really goes through that and gets it and it's their fault, like, then they get it.
Yeah. So I would like to sort of summarize all of this by saying Julia tried really hard to be accommodating. She just, as Dan says, didn't have practice. So she did try really hard and she doesn't have practice. And my family tends to not think through logistics, generally speaking. By and large, it was a good visit. Like, I feel like I got a much better sense of like the care and awareness that my family can be capable of. And I just want to put a giant caveat on all of this. This is, and I have very specifically made this my journey from my perspective in retelling this. I'm not going to speak for Michael at all. Like, this, he is somebody who can and will stand up for himself on his own. He doesn't need me for that. This is just my way of doing this. And, obviously I had a conversation with him about it, but in retelling it very specifically from my point of view.
Well, I'm just curious, since you've mentioned it, obviously you've had this conversation with him. You've processed this in part with him, at least. We're not the first person to hear these stories. So I'm wondering, like, what is his opinion, attitude? I mean,
as an example, they were walking out the door as we were getting home from something. And so in passing, it was like, oh, what'd you guys do? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And they're on their way to a museum. And I had some work to do. And so I was like, oh no, I have work to do. Sorry. And then my little sister turned to Michael and was like, oh, do you want to come with us? And he's like, no, I don't have any interest in that. Yeah. Thanks. No, thanks. Nice. And that was it. So I think that was basically his approach to just the entire trip.
Which, can I just say, works. Motherfucking works.
It did.
Because a lot of our listeners would have had a huge thing about that. Like, oh, I should say yes, but I don't want to say yes. What do I do? What do I do? I'm trapped. Yeah.
And it was fine.
I've got that FOMO thing. I admit it. Yeah, I think I've got that FOMO thing.
I think it helped that he was genuinely not interested in the thing that they were going to go do.
Yeah, but a lot of people would not have said that anyway.
True. Yes, very true. You sort of get dragged into it just because of the pressure of being social.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has gone extremely long.
Good luck, future Michael.
I'll have to do a number of edits, but
good thing it's only Saturday
instead of Tuesday night. We have a tip.
Yeah, and it's from your Michael.
Yes, it is. So in preparation for, I'm doing all the talking on this episode.
I can talk. So
yeah, if you want to do it, I have points. I have bullet points, but start it off.
Michael shared with us a lovely website where he got a swimsuit for Big Bayou.
Two swimsuits.
Two swimsuits. We saw them. They are lovely.
They're really nice. Yeah.
The website is the designer's Patrick Ellenwood. It's, I believe, just patrickellenwood.com. And they are lovely, sexy, colorful, awesome swimsuits. And they go up to, it's 3X, which is 50 to 54, but he also will accommodate larger sizes.
And it says, I love this. It says right on the website that if you need a larger size, just email and ask.
And so he is this person, I assume his name is Patrick, is the one making all of these suits himself.
He's a one-man shop, I think.
Probably a one-man shop. He does, like we mentioned, custom orders. Michael's was what he said was a 4X, 58 inches. And his concern with the suits, because he got two, was that, even if the waist fit, that maybe the legs wouldn't quite fit right. And so he got them, tried them out. He was like, these are perfect. Like they're stretchy, they're comfortable, they feel like quality.
I actually ordered a pair just this morning from that website because
awesome.
they come in non-fat people sizes.
They do.
And what I loved about it was, again, it's the sizing. Like, Don, you've talked about how a lot of times, an extra large is 34.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. What world, what planet do you want? No, I mean, so the sizing of small, medium, large is pretty consistent. What I was looking at was, okay, it is not cheap.
No.
On the other hand, there is no fat tax.
There's no fat tax.
So meaning, like, the larger size are not more expensive than the
They're
smaller
all the same
size.
price.
They're all the same price. And what I noticed is, it's a hefty price, but I got it. And a lot of people are like, oh, fat people clothing is always so expensive. Well, yes, but so is designer clothing. Like, if I go out and I buy like an Armani suit or a Aussie bum suit, that is also top dollar. So if you're talking about a custom suit, it's not outrageous.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a little higher than you pay at Walmart? Oh, it's going to be a lot higher than you pay at Walmart.
Yeah.
But, you're not getting Walmart.
What I like about this is so often, and this is, I don't know, a discussion happening in fat activism, is fat people clothing is not ethically made. It is, it's I'm blanking
Made by children in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And this
And you're paying more for it.
you're paying more. And, I think this is very fair considering it is handmade. I hate saying like handmade in the USA because I feel like that there's the fighter jets and eagle sound. But I like I like knowing that my clothing was ethically made and that like the money going to it is like, that's because it was not made in a sweatshop. It was, it's the guy said he learned to make swimsuits when he was learned to sew when he was in the circus.
So he's a former circus performer. I think he's he's his own model for the swimsuits.
I think so.
It says it on the website.
Yeah. So don't be put off by the fact that he's small and thin and looks gorgeous. But because you're going to think, because if a fat person goes to this, the last thing they're going to think is that these swimsuits would fit
it's a lot of very traditional.
I admit, I saw the
models.
front page and I thought, oh, you must have sent the wrong link.
But no, he actually is a former circus performer who was jealous of all the wonderful spangly custom made outfits that his female performers were able to find and buy easily, but not him. So he started making his own.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually kind of a crazy origin story.
That's why I
I've heard
mentioned
that
it.
story from a lot of bigger drag queens too.
Yeah. And just to put a capper on it, as Dan mentioned, there's no fat tax. So the larger the size suit, it's all the same price. And in Michael's case, for one of the suits, he had to make a new pattern for it. Did so, again, no extra charge. Literally just, what do you want? What size do you want? I'll make it for you. Same flat price for whatever the pattern is. So yeah, so if you need a suit, then in our case for Big Bayou coming up end of August, beginning of September, Labor Day weekend, check it out. And the only other thing is it does seem to be just him. So if he does get a huge influx of orders, maybe, be patient.
Order in advance.
Yes.
Well, having a nice discussion about swimsuits made me think, why don't we do a bit about bathing suits today?
Oh, let's us do, Don. Let's us do.
Okay. So I did a little bit of a deep dive into the history of swimsuits.
You did a deep dive into swimsuits.
Yes, I did.
Where's my rim shot? Hold on. Yay! Okay. Continue.
And here's what I found. All right, multiple choice questions. Which of the following was the most common material to make early bathing suits out of?
Oh no.
1, leather.
Oh, God.
Oh,
2, flannel.
the chafing.
3, silk. Or 4, rubber.
Oh,
I want to say leather or rubber.
I think flannel.
I want to go with flannel, but that sounds too disappointingly obvious.
I'm going to say leather.
Let's see if he says
The correct answer is, in fact, flannel.
Yay!
Ooh.
Flannel
one.
and wool were two of the most common ones.
Yeah.
Wool I had heard of. Oh,
And it's such an interesting side note. They did start making rubber swimsuits for women in the 1950s, and they're called like quartos or something. But they had the unfortunate side effect of basically slipping off their bodies when they got wet.
maybe this was intentional.
I was going to say.
So that didn't work out so well. The earliest bathing suits were basically full body gowns.
Yeah.
Right. For women. How did some women stop their skirts from floating up?
I just love that no man ever considered that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
we're gonna do full body gowns, and yeah, that'll work.
1, lead weights in the hem.
Oh, God.
2, sewing the hems to the socks of the swimsuit.
Oh, no.
Physically having to hold down the skirts with their knees while swimming, or stirrups at the hem that fit around the foot after they were in the water.
Well, I'm going to say weights.
Lead weights?
I think lead weights, but that almost sounds a little too obvious.
I'm going to go with stirrups.
Stirrups? Okay, 1 stirrups, 2 weights.
Yeah.
The correct answer is lead weights in the hems.
I'm 2 for 2.
Martha Washington is a famous user of that particular device. And yes, there were issues with it literally dragging women down to the bottom. So some early swimming actually just consisted of having a buoy with a rope going out to it that women wearing lead weights on their hems would pull themselves along the rope as swimming.
Dumb. This is so dumb.
Yeah, and so it completely expected. I mean,
technology was available at the time to make a garment for somebody that didn't require you to wear lead weights in water.
yeah, but come on. But number 1, there were witches.
Okay,
and
true.
number 2,
Well, if they float, they're not a witch.
right? So
No,
That's why they
sorry.
need the lead
If they
weights.
float,
If they
they're,
float,
a
they're a
witch.
witch.
If they sink, they're not a witch. They
See?
die either way.
See?
All right. So necessity is the mother of invention. What is one of the reasons the iconic bikini came into existence? 1, an elastic shortage. 2, World War II rationing required manufacturers to conserve cloth. 3, patriotism asked women to wear skimpy bathing suits to increase soldiers' morale. Or 4, an accident before a photo shoot shredded certain outfits requiring some last-minute tailoring.
Huh.
I'm going to say the cloth conservation.
World War II rationing.
I think the patriotism one. I think they wanted to
Patriotism?
get the guys all horned up so they'd fight harder.
Okay. Yeah, patriotism, we've got rationing.
Well, the bikini comes in the 50s, and it's part of the whole Polynesian thing. And what would go along with that more than wartime stuff would be what Michael was talking about, that it's like getting people horned up or doing your civic duty for, I don't know what.
The boys are coming back, and we need some more kids in the near future.
They're coming somewhere.
Support our troops by supporting your troops.
So we've got 2 for patriotism and 1 for rationing. The correct answer is, in fact, World War II rationing. The bathing suit manufacturers were asked to reduce the amount of cloth they used by 10%.
So they reduced it by 50.
They just got rid of.
They just went to town on it.
And they sold it for twice as much.
So there is one specific man whose name I did not write down, who is credited as being the inventor of the bikini. What did the inventor of the bikini say a suit had to do to be considered a bikini? 1, cover less than 10% of the body. 2, fit through a wedding ring. 3, shock a priest.
Oh.
Or 4, he said you'd know bikini when you saw one.
I'm going to say you'd know a bikini when you saw one just because that's, I don't know. I can see him
the obscenity
like,
test?
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I really like the wedding ring thing because I don't think Don would make that up.
I
don't know if I should feel insulted or complimented.
I think Don came up with the answer for number 4 because of the MPAA psycho. We saw a breast, and then it was like, how do you? Because that's where that came from. I'm forgetting the whole story.
I don't know that.
Yeah,
quote.
the federal judge.
You know that story. Anyway, so I'm gonna say it has to fit through a wedding ring, even though that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, 2 for rings and
1 for the, you'd know a bikini if you saw it.
the correct answer is fit through a wedding ring.
Yeah.
I win. I won a bit.
I don't know. There's still 1 more.
Oh.
All right.
Damn it. Well, this could potentially tie us up.
The Speedo is the notorious male equivalent to the bikini now, though many places call it by different names. What is one of the names it is called in Australia? 1, the koala cot. 2, the budgie smuggler. 3, the dingo den. Or 4, the Tasmanian dangler.
Oh, damn it. I was going to go for banana hammock.
I believe it is the budgie smuggler.
You got one for Budgie Smuggler.
I like Budgie Smuggler. I just love Budgie Smuggler, so I'm going to say Budgie Smuggler.
Well,
Smuggling some budgies.
I'm gonna play tactically here and go for Budgie Smuggler because then I win either way.
Michael gaming the system. The correct
Finally.
answer is, in fact, the Budgie Smuggler.
Yay!
Which I think we should move to call it everywhere in the
Well,
world.
to
'cause
be
that's just
fair,
amazing.
Speedo is a brand name. It is not the generic form of that Budgie Smuggler is.
I just love that, though. I read that and I'm like, okay, that was the origin of the entire bathing suit bit. I'm like, I just want to say Budgie Smuggler.
Michael, you have to press the drop balloons for you. Press the button that drops the balloons.
I don't think I have one for that. I have.
What is the sound of balloons dropping? Is it a Zen koan?
I have to. So I do want to load up the board with a number of more extra sound effects. I think I have. Yeah, I don't have a celebration sound effect yet.
Well, let us know what sounds you want on the board. Where can you tell us, me? Well, we're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on Podchaser or Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts. And there's another one, right? There was somewhere new that you said.
You said Podchaser already.
Wasn't there another one?
Nope.
Okay, that's those.
The drums are going. There's so many drums.
So many drums. See the links to all the articles we talked about and the link to the swimsuit site at www.bigfatgaypod.com. We're done. Maybe you're stuffing some budgies in your swimsuit because you're getting ready to go to the pool at Big Bayou, and we're going to be there. Remember that? That's the thing.
I've got cages of budgies standing by.
But you're trying to find parking, and the budgies are getting out. So
Watch out.